Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the MoneySmart Podcast, where I'm joined by Megan, aka the Savvy Spender. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hello, my name's Megan, aka the Savvy Spender. I run all of the Savvy Spender social platforms, talking all things personal finance, making money, saving money and teaching people how to budget.
How have you found actually growing, because you have a substantial following on Instagram and probably various other platforms as well? How have you found actually coming up and promoting all your different content to build this following?
It's been a very, very quick journey. I never ever assumed or thought that I would get such a substantial following. The topic of money is so important, especially now and the last few years with the cost of living crisis. More and more people want to get the most from their money and also make some extra income as well, so it's been amazing to be able to get that out to the wider public, and that's what's helped the growth of my social media platforms.
How have you felt actually your content helping people with the cost of living crisis? Have you got any feedback about that? How has it impacted you and your life, having this positive impact on everyone?
It's definitely been a positive impact, but there's also some sad emotions that come with it as well. The fact that so many people are really, really struggling out there, and that some people are actually choosing, especially in the winter, whether to keep their homes warm or to put warm food on the table. And it's really sad that people are in that position, but it's so nice to be able to give people tips and suggestions and just put out general educational content to make them be able to have both rather than just choosing.
In terms of the tips, it's a bit putting you on the spot, but what would your best tip be in the current climate for, like, say 18-year-olds maybe coming straight into work now? What would your best tip be for them with the cost of living crisis and obviously having student debt if they went into university?
In terms of coming into work now, I would definitely say trying to avoid that lifestyle creep. It's so easy once you come out of education and you finally got a job and you're getting more money than you've ever been used to live up to that salary or pay that you're getting, but you can't do that because you'll just be in that cycle of spending the money that you haven't got, increasing that debt. You've really got to avoid lifestyle creep, and you can do that by budgeting. So that would be my biggest tip, to make sure you're budgeting your money, don't get carried away with your spending, and make sure you're always checking in with that bank balance to see where you're at with your budget.
We've spoken on previous podcasts about budgeting and different methods of doing it. What would your best method of actually budgeting in the current climate be?
So there's different types of budgeting methods. It all depends what suits you and your lifestyle. The one that I personally use is the zero-based budgeting method, and that basically means that the money you get minus all of your expenses minus savings, you'll be left with zero. And that's how I like it, to know that everything is accounted for, all of my bills, all of my fun money, any expenditures and my savings, and I'm left with zero. Some other popular ones are the 50-30-20 method. I personally don't really use or like this one because I think that it's really hard to split your money out into 50-30-20, especially with the cost of living crisis. But the biggest advice would be just trial and error them, see what one works for you. A budget is not one size fits all, so try different ones out and you'll find what works for you and your money.
With budgeting as well, do you think it should be an actual way of allocating some money to maybe doing side hustles to actually build your income as well at the same time? Because we see many people trying to look at different income streams, for example, real estate or maybe selling their old clothes. Do you think that's a good way of actually managing the risk, essentially, say if you've made redundant, for example?
Definitely, there's nothing that can go wrong if you've got multiple streams of income. It can only enhance that budgeting journey or any sort of personal finance journey that you're on. I personally advocate for side hustles. I think they're an amazing way to supplement your income. I was actually earning more from my side hustles than I was my salaried job, because they just grew and grew and I got more confident with my side hustles. I've tried out so many different ones, and it's definitely a way, especially when you are maybe have some student debts that you want to just clear, you can do that by setting up a side hustle, whether that's selling old clothes, renting out a driveway, you know, doing mystery shopping, market research. It's easy stuff that everyone can do, and it can really help bring in some extra money.
What would you suggest is the best actual side hustle to do today, or would there be various different ones that you suggest?
It would be different for everyone, but the ones that everybody can do, and they are just so easy to set up, you don't need any money to set them up, it would be market research. And that is because it's just essentially giving your opinion on things that you use or that you like, and you can get paid substantial amounts for it. The best one that I've ever had was £350, and a researcher come to my house and I actually cooked them a meal, and it was all about the stuff that I eat. And yeah, I got paid £350 for that, and it's something that everyone can do. And there's so many different subjects, whether you like football, golf, food, driving cars, absolutely anything. It's so easy to get into.
With the actual side hustles, I think it's more prominent now because of university, like student loans, for example. I think the interest rate on them is going up to like 11%. Do you feel like in today's world, with the rising cost of student loans, is it actually accessible to go to university, then have that accumulating debt constantly on your back, or do you think people should just go straight into work? What would your opinions be on that?
In my personal opinion, and from my experience, I didn't go to university. I actually ended up going into an apprenticeship, and it was the best thing I ever did. There was myself who went into an apprenticeship. I actually worked for Birmingham City Football Club doing a HR apprentice role, and out of that I was able to get into a HR career and then go into learning and development, and I was earning more than people in the team that did go to uni and study HR as a degree. And I think that getting that hands-on experience rather than going down the qualification route can lead to a bigger salary in a shorter amount of time, rather than going to the educational route. That's not to say that university isn't the right answer. It depends what your goals are and depends where you want to get to within that career. But something like what I was doing, HR, L&D, I personally don't think you need that university degree to be able to have a successful career in that industry. You can get an apprenticeship, or you can find an entry-level role and work your way up.
Do you find actually doing the apprenticeship or not going to uni hold you back in any way? Because we see at the moment a lot of different companies are introducing apprenticeships, and more of a well-known one to everyone is that actual NHS apprenticeship that's came out.
Yeah.
Do you feel it hold you back in any way from not going to university, or do you feel like we're on an equal playing level?
I don't think it's held me back at all. I think it's enhanced everything. My original plan was to go to university. The only reason that I didn't was because the college that I planned to go to do my A-levels stopped doing A-levels 2 weeks before I was due to join. So that kind of altered the path that I was planning on going down. And I'm just so glad that that happened, because if it didn't, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. So I think it's completely enhanced the journey. I got so much hands-on experience, and it didn't hinder me at all not having a qualification in the career that I progressed into.
Did you ever see from the actual career you started in to coming now to like a full-time influencer, did you ever see this happening, and how has it felt if you actually reflect back now from where you were before to where you are now?
Absolutely not. Did not ever imagine that this would happen. Until only 3 weeks ago, I was actually still in my learning and development job, and there's just so much potential with content creation that I decided to go for that full time. There's no connection between the two at all, what I was doing in L&D, HR, in comparison to what I'm doing now, but it just completely shows that it's a passion of mine to talk about money and educate people around personal finance, and I had to run with my passion.
How did it start? Was it just, as you referred to there, your passion, or was it because of the particular time of maybe cost of living crisis, COVID, or?
It was more to do with my passion. So I have always been savvy with money. I've always had a side hustle on the side of whatever job I'm doing. That started off in school. I used to be that girl with the backpack that was selling sweets and chocolate for more money than I bought them. And I've always been known as that girl to have that side hustle. And then when I had my little girl and I was on maternity leave, I thought I'm going to set up an Instagram page just to share money tips, to show that you can still enjoy maternity leave whilst being on less pay. And I was just sharing everyday tips to mothers originally. More and more people started following me, and then it started to get more educational, and that's kind of how it led to where I am now. It was just the following rapidly grew, and I realised that there was obviously a need for this, and so many people wanted me to continue, and the more my following grew, the more brands would contact me to work with them, and then that's how I've got to where I am today.
Is there a particular way that you focused on growing, for example, mainly posts or reels, or has it just been whatever you've thought of you should express to your following, you've posted, or is it more?
It's finding what works, really. So for me, consistency is the biggest thing, especially in the personal finance space. You're talking about money, and a lot of people don't want to lose money. So you've got to make sure that people can trust you and trust the things that you're promoting, if it's apps, brands, services. And for me, it was consistency. Every single day I'd go on stories and talk to my followers like I'm their friend. I still do that today. It doesn't matter how big you grow, you've got to make sure they trust you. And just seeing what works, trialing and erroring things. If you post something and it doesn't get a good response, maybe switch what you're doing, and then seeing what does work well. And for me, it's always infographic posts that work quite well. Reels do work okay, but I think my audience and followers are now used to them static infographics that when I do post a reel doesn't do as good. But it all depends what your niche is. So for anybody thinking about going into content creation, whatever sort of industry it's in, make sure you see what your peers are doing, take inspiration from that, and trial and error things and see how it works for you.
You mentioned actually your following trusting you, and we see the advances in modern technology now with like AI and the recent upcoming of ChatGPT. How do you feel people can protect themselves from these risks of scams and different courses which aren't actually what they seem to be?
Always doing your research on the person that you're buying a course from. I personally would never buy a course from somebody that I don't feel I have a connection with or trust. If I just come across a course online, I would never just buy it. I'd always Google reviews, have a look on their Instagram, and you can get a feel straight away for if someone's really legit or not. Like I said myself, I'm always on stories every day. I've done that for a year and a half now. Somebody would not go on their stories to talk to their following if they weren't genuine for such a long amount of time. So if you are thinking of buying a course online, make sure you do that research into who's actually produced that course and if they are a trustworthy source.
In terms of the different courses, in my opinion, I'm a firm believer, if they haven't made that money themselves, then why should I buy a course off them to teach me? There's actually no evidence behind it. But with technology as well, there could be some advantages to it as well, because it makes everything easier. But at the same time, there's a lot more different platforms where you can learn from, because we see banks and a lot of different companies these days with their different games and their different schemes to help out the younger generation. How do you feel that could advance, and what do you think of it in the current place it is at the moment?
I think it's brilliant that wider and trusted companies have these learning sources. There's been apps when I was getting into investing that would teach me all about investing, and because it's already a trusted company, you know that you can trust the information that it's putting out, especially when it's a free resource, so you know that it's not there for them to make money. And I think that it will only develop, and these bigger companies will start to do even more learning platforms for the everyday person to learn about things like personal finance, investing, or any subject really. And I think in terms of AI, you do have to be careful. Like you said, someone should do what they're putting that course out for. So if that person hasn't been through what they're telling you to do, then you shouldn't really trust them. And AI kind of makes it easier for people to do that, because AI can create that course with you not knowing a thing about it. So it's making sure again that you trust the person that you're doing it with, and with these bigger companies you can automatically trust them, I think. So yeah, I think it will only grow and grow with what the big companies have to offer.
I think that ties in really well to our company of Monito as well, because we are trying to focus on more physical products first instead of going primarily online with like games and stuff that actually inhibit the trust. So as you can see there, we have the storybook and the activity book.
Yeah.
And it's just about instilling the behaviours, because it's statistically shown that children form lifelong financial habits before the age of 7. So we're trying to do it in a fun and interactive way where they can do these games where they can probably total up the amount of coins or like do some drawings, but also have a meaning behind it with the Kiki the Koala collection, that every good deed they're going to do, essentially, they're always going to get a reward for it, and it's instilling them behaviours. So when they go out in the real world, they get this money, they don't feel, oh, let's go spend it somewhere, instead be smart with our money and plan it out, as you said, with budgeting. How do you feel that's prominent in today's market, and do you feel there's an actual gap for these products?
I think there's definitely a gap for physical products. If I was to see this book in the shops, I would definitely pick it up. Having a young daughter myself, I want to make sure that I'm instilling them positive financial behaviours in her from early, and I think you're definitely on the right ball there, saying that it's good to go with physical products more than them digital products at first when you're trying to grow your business, because when you pick up a physical product, you know that it's real, it's there in front of you, and you don't necessarily care who's behind it. If the product's good, you'll go for it, whereas digital products, you want to know the person behind it and make sure that you're putting your money into good use. So if I seen these in the shops, I would 100% pick them up. I think parents, especially in this day and age with the cost of living and inflation, they want their kids to be able to learn about healthy habits with money. So I think it's a brilliant product, and I think there's definitely a gap in the market there for it.
I think we try to promote our unique point of being actual year 12 students, 16-year-olds to 17-year-old, and we've been through it recently, so we remember what we felt we needed, and from that we've created these products. And with the podcast as well, we'll speak to big influencers like yourself, but we're providing a unique viewpoint of ourselves as the younger generation, because I don't feel like we're represented enough in the actual financial teaching market, because it's mainly older people speaking about it, but it's more fresh in our minds thinking about how we could have been provided more, which I feel like is the unique point. Do you feel like there's any other point that's more unique, or do you feel like that's our main point that makes us different to others?
I'd say that's definitely your unique selling point, and also the fact that you are targeting the younger generation. I think that you were correct in saying that most personal finance education out there is for the older generations, and I think that it's important to instill it in the younger kids, because that's when they form the most money habits, especially even when you get to those teenagers and you start to take more responsibility with your money, and you might be going to uni and moving out of the family home where you are literally in control and the only person who's responsible for your finances. So being able to start them from early with books like this is absolutely brilliant, and I think that is definitely the selling point that you should be able to build on, coming from young kids like yourselves as well, knowing that you've been there, done it, and you think that this is what was missing from when you grew up and learnt about money. I think that parents and teenagers will be able to connect to that and will want to be able to see your business do well.
I forgot to talk about the main reason this product actually arose from, which is young enterprise. So it's a scheme essentially where it allows people of my age and in school to actually run a business for a year. And they're initially, because you are at my age, you don't really know a lot, so you're going to face a lot of challenges, because it's all about developing your skills. So throughout, we've been developing our skills. And we are actually proud to say we are national winners of the Young Enterprise competition, and we will be representing the UK in the European finals, which we're very proud about, very surprised about. But how do you feel like I know it's a bit putting you on the spot, how do you feel we can bring the trophy home to the UK?
I think instilling that message in everyone and trying to get that connection with the audience of why you're doing what you're doing and how important it is, getting that foundation, that healthy foundation with money is absolutely essential to good money management in your later years, and it can essentially change people's lives. And that might sound dramatic, but money is a tool, and it's a tool that we use for the rest of our lives. And I think if you get across that message of how important it is why you're doing what you're doing, then it will just win over the audience and the people that are voting for you, and I think you'd be able to bring that trophy home.
We were debating whether we should actually incorporate an online part of it now, or do you think, as you mentioned before, keep to the physical products and make them more established, or do you think we should approach maybe introducing games and stuff? Because on our website at the moment, it's selling our products about us, and then we've got a couple of blogs on like how you can manage your money at university and the cost of living crisis, what it is, and then our actual partners, which are Step Change, where all our profits will be donated to, a bit about them and how you can reach out to them 24/7 for financial help.
I think that bringing in that digital element would be brilliant. I think it would just supplement what you're already doing. I think your main focus should definitely be the physical products, because I think that's where it's so different. There's already a lot of digital games out there. However, there's never any harm in having different things, because then you are not limiting your audience. Some people may just prefer having them digital products and games. Some people prefer having physical. I think if your main focus is on the physical, but you can add in them additions, like we've got these games, or we have this blog or podcast, you can bring that into it, and then there's something for everybody.
You think we're targeting our audience correctly? Because we also have the debate of if we are, or we're having too much of a focus on the parent with our socials. It's just about having the fine balance, and I feel someone as big as you would probably understand and know how to target them. What would your best suggestion be?
I think that it's good to have content out there for everybody, so maybe do a few fun videos that younger children would be able to watch, but essentially in terms of these products here, it would be the parent that's responsible for being able to bring them into the child's life to make that difference. So I think targeting the parents is brilliant, and I think that that should be the main focus, but maybe bringing an element to reach the actual younger generation as well. You know, just a few fun videos maybe, or a podcast that could be in bite size so they can have a listen to little snippets that are easily digestible for them.
We aim to invest in the child throughout their childhood, essentially. So as they get old and they go into university, this is where the podcast is aimed at them. So what would your best tip be to someone at university? Say they're struggling to manage their finances, going out partying a lot. What would your best advice be to them?
Again, it would be that lifestyle creep and making sure that you're budgeting to what you want your future to be. It's so easy, especially when you're a student, to want to go out all the time. That's what your friends are doing. You're constantly ordering takeaway, and after you've spent that money, it never makes you feel good. But having a budget and making sure you're allocating money towards, say, a going out part, then you know that you can still go out and have fun whilst also still being able to afford your bills and not getting yourself into debt. So budgeting, it sounds so simple, but it is the absolute foundation to having a healthy relationship with money.
You mentioned previously about the apprenticeships. I'm in the year now where we're soon going to be applying for universities and things, and I find a lot of my friends around me, they want to go to university because they see all this nightlife and see all their friends going, and they get into the trap where they go to university pretending they're focusing on the degree, but they're actually focusing on all the other stuff around it. How would you take an approach on that? Say if you were looking back into school now, I know you didn't go to university, but say if you had that environment, how would you approach it?
I think I've always been quite a sensible person that hasn't really enjoyed that party life, so it's easy for me to say, but just focusing on then long-term goals and what am I getting from going out every weekend, what am I getting from spending loads of money on alcohol and food, is it helping me get towards where I want to be? And I think it's finding that balance. You know, it's not to say that you shouldn't go out and have fun. Absolutely, you need to do that. You should enjoy the journey of wherever you're heading, but it needs to be able to have that balance so you're not getting yourself into that debt or getting yourself into a bad cycle with money. So have that healthy balance. Try and surround yourself with people that have got goals and aspirations and aren't just there for the party life, because I think the people you're around is the biggest, factor to where your life will head.
I think tying into that as well, is there a particular mindset that you'd have, or like an approach mentally to when you say you're struggling at university, or you've gone to university and you're regretting it now because of the actual mindset you had when you were going there originally?
Yeah, I think it's a hard one because you know, the years that you spend at university, your mindset will change, and you may spend the first year constantly partying, or you know, and then realise that you probably shouldn't have done that, or you've got yourself into that bad cycle with money. But I think it's never too late to change your mindset, and it's never too late to change the people you're around, and it's never too late to turn your relationship around with money. So even if you have got yourself into some debt, or you've realised that your spending habits have fell down a slippery slope, you can always change that around.
I think with actual thinking of the mindset of university, we see now unemployment rate's quite low. It's at 3.8% at the moment. But as people come out of university, and it may be happening with apprenticeships now, the demand rises. We're seeing a lot of people get the degree, but then they're not actually getting jobs, and then they're struggling with their finances in that way. Is there a mindset approach you'll have to that? Because if it was me personally, I'd be like determined, just stay persistent with it, because you never know when you're going to get an offer or you're going to get an interview. What would your best tip be to them people who are in that situation at the moment?
Yeah, so my brother was actually in a similar situation. He went to university, he got his degree, and then when he come out of university, he was struggling so much to find a job in that field. And I think that it's, you know, realising that this is your long-term career. It's not something that needs to happen instantly, although it would be lovely to just finish university and, you know, get your dream job straight away. That's not the reality for a lot of people, and I think that maybe going into some work experience within that field, even if just part-time, 1 or 2 days a week whilst doing a part-time paid job, and that way you may fast track yourself into that dream role that you want, that goes with your degree. And also them side hustles as well. You know, you can make a substantial amount from side hustles, and it's not going to delay you from, if an offer comes in, being able to accept it. You can side hustle in your own time at home, and then still be applying for those jobs and get yourself in that dream job, and then you can either carry on with your side hustles or choose to let them go once that job offer comes in.
Would you believe in actually having short-term goals and then long-term goals? Is that an approach that you would suggest to take, or is that just more towards the mindset?
I think having short-term goals is essential, because if you just have long-term goals and you're thinking about what's going on in 5 years, you probably won't ever get to where you want to be, because you're just like, oh, that's so far in the future. But if you have steps to take within them 5 years, you will more likely get to where you want to be. And I think that in terms of coming out of uni and just expecting to land that job that you've always wanted, that's quite unrealistic for a lot of people. So having them short-term goals to be able to help you to get to where you want to be is essential, really.
We see now with the actual rise of demand for jobs as people come out of university, it's more about them small skills, them soft skills, actually communicating with people and networking. How do you feel the power of networking in the modern day is to actually landing these jobs and actually learning off people? Because as I've mentioned in previous podcasts, I'm a firm believer in there's always someone you can learn off, and I do like LinkedIn a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel in today's society, whether they're young or old, there's always a different perspective you can learn off. How do you feel people should approach that?
Yeah, so a mindset is ever changing. You'll never just have a mindset and that's it. And like you said, there's always people that you can be learning from, and then people will always have different opinions and perspectives. And that's why when you finish school or university, your learning doesn't just end there. It's just getting started really in the world of work, and especially in the world of money. And you know, networking is absolutely everything. I live by the saying that network is your net worth, because the people you're around will help you to get to where you want to be, whether that's in your career, life in general, your money goals. And there's so many free resources out there, so many different networking events you can get yourself on. You only need to Google it, business network meetings, and there's one in every city. Sometimes they're free, sometimes they're only £10, and the people you will meet will change your life, and it's something that you can do so easily.
Is there an approach you actually have when you're speaking to these people? Is there a way you feel you should speak to them originally, or is there, because people my age, they tend to get nervous, like when I'm presenting, I'll be thinking, what are these people going to think of me? how do you approach speaking to new people? Is there a particular way, or is it just natural?
I think you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself and that you've got something to bring to the table, because it's something that I hear a lot. You know, I'm only young, why would they want to talk to me? They probably think I'm inexperienced, they probably won't want to talk to me. But age is actually on your side. You've got so many years ahead of you to learn, to grow, and to educate new people, and age shouldn't be a factor that puts people off. So my biggest advice would always be, when you're talking to new people, be confident in yourself, know what you want to ask, know what you want to talk about. Don't feel embarrassed of your age or anything, your inexperience, because you're there for a reason, they're there for a reason, and you could bring something to the table that they might need. So you've just got to have that belief in yourself.
It ties back into modern technology though, because as we've advanced with technology and my generation has grown up, the problem is now a lot of people are fixated to their phones or messaging online instead of getting this in-person experience. Do you feel there's a different approach that could be taken to that? Because a lot of people, you mention connecting and like networking on LinkedIn, you can just drop them a message, but it's not the same as getting that in-person conversation with them. How do you feel in modern day actually messaging is compared to actually speaking in person to that person?
I think it's brilliant because it's instant, but like you say, it's not the same as meeting someone in person. In person, you can see what someone's really like, you can read their body language, you can listen to them properly, and I think that everybody should try and take some time out to be able to meet people. Fair enough if you message people at first, you start to establish a relationship, but once you've established that small relationship, ask if they'll meet up, if you're close to each other. Just go out for a coffee, a catch up. It doesn't have to be formal. But with this kind of, professional space, you've got to do what most people aren't doing. And in this day and age, most people aren't meeting people in person. They aren't going out and getting them real life face-to-face connections. And if you do what most people aren't doing, then you're the one that excels and grows, because you're stepping out of that usual zone. And it's also about stepping out of your comfort zone. A lot of younger people are, like you said, fixated on their phones. That's their comfort. They can just message someone, they don't have to get ready, they don't have to think about how they're gonna say something to someone. But stepping out of your comfort zone brings you confidence, because you end up doing things that you don't want to do. But like that saying, I'm never good at replicating sayings, but if you stay in your comfort zone, you will never move forward, because you will just be doing what you're comfortable with, what you're happy with, and you'll just get into that routine. So in order to grow, you need to step out of that comfort zone.
That's a very powerful point. It essentially meaning that you have to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, you're essentially not going to get anywhere, because everyone has something that they can bring to the table, as you've said. In terms of actually meeting up with people afterwards and building these relationships, how can people use these to thrive in the working world? Say, for example, in offices, meeting these new people, building these relationships, how do you feel it benefits others around them and as a collective for the business?
It benefits everybody involved, because when you start building these relationships and you start talking about things that you're good at and you hear what other people are good at, if a business opportunity comes up or any sort of opportunity comes up, you will automatically think about that person. If you told me, for example, that you were really good at setting up podcasts, and then I wanted to set up my own podcast, but I didn't have a clue where to book, what to do, I would automatically think of you, because I know that you're good at that. So it's getting yourself out there and telling people what you're good at, and as a business that can really help, because you can play on people's strengths. But if you never meet anybody, you end up being very lonely on your own, and you're not sure where to go, because you're not very good at that, but you also don't know anybody that's very good at that. So getting out and making them connections and networking just builds a better team.
Do you think that ties into actual work-life balances? Because if people are always in the workplace around these people, they don't actually have time to essentially go out of them, because they're going to be tired after work. They just want to rest, for example. Do you feel it's important to have that? Because we see at the moment PwC in the summer, they're trialling 4-day work weeks. Do you feel that's important to actually do, or is it more a business side of boosting productivity because they're working less, but then they have more rest at the same time?
Yeah, I think a 4-day work week would definitely boost productivity, and I hope that it's something that is trialed more widely and not just in certain companies. But I also think that you can network with people within the workday. You don't have to have after work drinks with someone to be able to form a relationship. If you're in a team, take it upon yourself to be able to say, shall we have a catch up at lunchtime, sit together, eat your lunch together, or go out and have a coffee at lunchtime. Or if you get 10 minutes, especially if you're in an office. I know that it's a lot harder now with working from home, but if you're in an office, go and sit in a meeting room and get 10 minutes in, block 10 minutes out of your diary and just have a catch up with someone, see what's going on. And if you are working from home and you don't really go into an office or never go into an office, it's even more important. You can still make those connections via Zoom, getting them cameras on, making sure you're seeing each other's faces, and it's not, in a lot of places, a lot of workplaces now, they are actually encouraging people to go out and meet. So use your work time wisely and try and use that to network.
In my opinion, I feel it's more important, especially when you first get into the workplace, because these people are going to help you feel more comfortable and actually thrive in the environment you're in. And just on that point, I may have forgot to mention it before, but it's about pensions, and when you're in work, you get these work-related pensions that they actually provide for you. But do you feel it's essential to actually start from when you initially get into the workplace and just continuously contribute towards your pension, so it's saving towards your future when you retire?
Yeah, definitely. I think that having a workplace pension, you should be taking advantage of it while you are in a workplace, especially because a lot of companies match your contribution, so it's essentially free money. When you are self-employed, you don't have that, so being in a workplace, it's something that you can definitely take advantage of. And if you do have a workplace pension, you enroll into that and you're paying into that, you are actually an investor, and your money will hopefully just grow and grow, and you will have a pot sitting there ready for your retirement. So I think it's really important to find out what the terms and conditions and all the benefits are to your particular workplace pension, and make sure that you are enrolled in that and putting up that money every single month to put into that. Also on that point, if you do pay into a workplace pension, it's actually more tax efficient because it comes from your salary, so it's pre-tax, so it's essentially more money in that sense as well.
That's just a brilliant tip of actually always starting early on.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned about how it builds up the pot. I think that ties in quite well to actual compound interest, and how the power of putting a small amount in but then leaving it and it actually building up over time is very powerful. Yeah. How do you suggest that there's different funds you can invest into? What would your investing tips be to someone of a younger demographic?
So I actually did a reel this week on compound interest, because I feel like it's such a simple concept that not many people really understand or know about. And in terms of compound interest, the biggest benefit is starting from early, because the earlier you start, the more that interest will compound. And basically what compound interest is interest you earn on interest. So even if you didn't put any money into a pot, if you had £100 initially, didn't put any money in, and after a year it was a 10% return, you'd have £110. The year after that, you'd then have £121, and you've earned £11 interest instead of £10 from the year before, because of that compounding. And I think for anybody getting into investing, you should have a look at ETFs, which are exchange traded funds, and these are essentially one fund that has lots of different companies in, so you can invest into lots of different companies in just one trade. So it's really easy. It also mitigates the risk as well, because you're not just investing in one company. You also don't have to do a lot of research, because when you're investing in just one startup company, for example, you have to make sure you're doing your research on that company, looking at their financial sheets. And in terms of just investing into an ETF, it's a lot of companies in one, which takes a lot of pressure off you to actually make sure you're doing the right research into that.
Would you say be more risk averse than actually being a risk taker when it comes to investing at a young age?
I guess it depends what sort of person you are, but I think, you know, being risk averse with investing, it is sensible. I'd say I'm quite risk averse and I play it safe with my investments. I think it's about the long-term gain rather than a get rich quick scheme, and investing into things like the S&P or the FTSE, you know, it's got that history behind it to say that it will get them returns, and it's just growth year on year. So being able to, as always, you know, with investing there's always risk, but that history shows that there's a growth there. So being risk averse and keeping your investments into, you know, funds like that, you more than likely will see that pot just grow and grow.
That's a really good tip to actually mention about being risk adverse initially, because it's quite, if you don't have a substantial income at that time and you allocate a lot of money to that, it might be a challenge if you're taking a risk and it doesn't pay off.
Yeah.
But for to tie up this episode, is there a role model that influences you in your career at the moment, or previously maybe?
In terms of role models, I have quite a few, and that is the network around me of other content creators. Also my partner, who is very, very good with money, and he's a very wise man in terms of financial management. But also I read a lot of Robert Kiyosaki books, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, and they are absolutely amazing for people just starting out on their personal finance journey, or also for people that are, you know, experienced investors. You will learn something from his books, and I take a lot of his quotes and instructionals and put them into my own life, and it's changed my whole mindset and life in general because of listening to him.
Is there any inspirational quotes you've had from reading them books or from anywhere else that you like to live by?
There's a lot of quotes that I like to live by. I do have them written down, but when I try and quote them, I always get them wrong, so I'm not going to try and do that. Although, if you do want some on here, we can have a look at my phone and I'll be able to get those.
It's your choice. Do you want to share any, or is it is there one particular message that summarises them all together?
I guess if I was to put them into my own words, it's to know where you're heading and take little steps every single day to get you there, and never ever think that you are you know, being too far-fetched, thinking about your goals, thinking about your dreams or aspirations, and make sure you think about those every day and, you know, think them into existence. Because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody will, and you'll never get to where you want to be. So make sure that every single day you're taking them little steps to reach that overall goal.
I'd just like to say a massive thank you for you to actually coming on the podcast today and taking time out of your actual busy day, I assume. And that has been episode 7 of the MoneySmart Podcast. I hope you have enjoyed, and make sure you tune into the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you so much.